guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, unfortunately. Oh, you're glowing.
I feel like I'm in space.
Just orbiting around space.
Yeah.
How's the closet? Is it cozy?
It smells like Tide. Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather. All right, we got this.
Hey Huskies, this is the producer of the My GBC podcast, Claire speaking. I'll also be the temporary host for this next episode. And you just heard a little sample of the fun we had last week when we recorded a big conversation on athletics at George Brown College. It features not one, not two, but three guests, including two GBC student athletes. With so many guests and helpful info to share, we decided to release it into two segments so you can digest this packed topic in smaller bites. In this first segment, I talk with the college sports info and media coordinator, Raymund Harripaul. He provides a helpful overview of what athletics has to offer, and we also introduce our student athletes. Segment 2 gets more into perspectives from the athletes, so make sure to tune into that one as well once it's released. Now, without further delay, here's the first segment of the GBC Athletics episode. Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. Hey Huskies, it's your temporary host Claire, filling in for Aranza this week. But why did I just quote that line from the college football drama Friday Night Lights? Well, today I am pleased to be co-hosting with Raymund Harripaul, the sports info and media coordinator for George Brown Athletics. And I'm even more excited that we'll be joined by two George Brown College athletes who have been making a splash this year. I'll start by welcoming you first, Raymund. How are you?
I am well, Claire. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be co-hosting with you today to highlight our two stellar athletes that have been making waves, like you said, amongst the OCAA in their respective discipline.
Yes, and I saw them just give each other a fist bump, so they're ready to talk all about it. So, Ray, what makes college sports exciting to you personally?
For me, it's the intangibles that students take in the classroom and actually apply on the field of discipline. The soft skills, leadership, teamwork, organization, time management. And then I love competition. I'm very competitive in my own regard. I used to play sports myself. So I love being around student athletes specifically who are on this journey, building themselves as humans, getting an education, all the while pursuing their sport and their discipline. And I think one of the things that we don't discuss a lot of is the student athlete perspective. Student first, athlete second. And there's a number of things that our athletes have to manage throughout the course of a season, essentially. Full-time course load, full-time play and practice schedule, traveling, as far as Sudbury, Ottawa, Belleville, other places across the province. And depending on the successes provincially, then there's nationals to represent your college at the national level. And I think that speaks volumes. And, George Brown has been trending in an upward momentum across the disciplines that we offer. And as a longtime student and now a proud staff member, I almost feel a certain duty of responsibility to ensure that our athletes get the most out of their experience when they're learning and playing for us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Did you play sports at George Brown as well?
No, I went to Humber first and I played golf. Now, some may say that's not a sport. I see Victoria laughing, but I was heavy into golf. Naturally, I've always gravitated to basketball. I'm a huge basketball fan, but I just love the field of competition. A lot of athletes go through certain adversities throughout an entire game, right? You could have a goalie let in 2 goals early on in the match, and then all of a sudden turn things around, and they end up scoring 2 of their own. Victoria did that earlier this season as a goalkeeper. She scored 2 goals, which you don't typically hear of. So I love the stories that come out of collegiate sports. And then what I appreciate the most is following their careers afterwards. And a lot of our athletes are still involved on the alumni level. Davon Reed comes to mind from badminton. He's a former provincial medal award recipient, and nationally he represented the college in badminton. So it's just, there's a number of reasons why, and again, just the duty of care to pay it forward.
Sounds like there's a lot more involved in athletics than just playing a game or playing a series of games. There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of resilience that you can gain as a person. So that's cool.
Absolutely.
So can you tell me just about GBC Athletics in general? What's on offer in the athletics department for students at George Brown?
So right off the bat, we'll discuss varsity sports. We offer men and women's badminton, men's baseball, men and women's basketball, esports, which is relatively new to the OCAA and the province. That's both for men and women's soccer, both indoor and outdoor, and men and women's volleyball. And then for our general student population, we have a number of intramural, which is sort of like house league, and extramural, which I guess the best way to describe it is, quote, varsity light, where you still sort of represent the college on a competitive level in basketball, cricket, soccer, frisbee, two ball, and other types of sports throughout the semesters. And then a couple other personal fitness things that we offer. We have the weight room for students. Pre-pandemic, we did have instructors on campus, and I imagine we'll be returning to that relatively soon once sort of things are settled and all our campuses are back to full capacity. But in general, we do offer a full gamut. And what I love the most is the integration of our varsity athletes participating in assisting students learning the sport. So for example, we recently had a learn to play indoor soccer series where we leaned on our captain from the men's soccer team, Jason Alvarado, and he was able to sort of provide students with his tips and tricks. Also, Jason has represented the college nationally for futsal. Futsal is somewhat like, I think Vic can give it more justice than what I'll try to do here, what futsal is, but it's a form of soccer, but more of like a court version. So it can be played in a gym. So we have athletes that, beyond what they are studying here at the college and where they're competing, they're doing things outside for their community, whether it's volunteering, competing nationally, or just paying it forward in some capacity, whether it's through their own futsal league for women, like Nicole Carvalho. She has her own women's futsal league, which is really great. And she's also represented Canada too nationally. So we have a number of athletes that are doing things that, we're sort of tasked with highlighting throughout their journey.
Yeah, and rightly so. I mean, that all sounds pretty cool. And there's just so much going on too that I think the average student at George Brown may not even be aware of.
It's because I don't think historically George Brown has been sort of a destination for varsity sports, but as the programs are growing and evolving, George Brown is becoming more of a destination, especially on the academic front. I've heard a number of our students tell me that they joined or they decided to attend George Brown for the academics. And you don't typically hear that. And I think that's something that George Brown should hold their head up high about.
Well, that is perfectly leads me into my next question, because I was curious, what is that connection between athletics and academics at George Brown? And are there any supports available for athletes?
So yeah, there are a number of supports in place. We have an athletic student support and compliance coordinator who ensures that our students are getting all the right classes, the prerequisites. If they want to parlay their 2-year credential, 3-year credential to a advanced degree in some capacity, Deja's there to assist them. And we also have an athletic academic assistant who hosts study hall throughout the course of the academic calendar year for our student athletes. And they're always available and ready to them, and also to the supports through their varsity coordinators. If students, that tends to be their first line of defense, so to speak, or the first person that they would speak to. I have this general elective class that I missed the deadline for but I'm a straight A student. Do you think you can assist me in getting in? Fortunately, our RO office works with us closely, and sort of allows our students to get in, not last minute, but sort of, near the end of that deadline. So, and then also the staff on hand too, they have a long sort of tenure relationship with the college and sort of know the ins and outs of certain things. Myself, coming from the Center for Business, most recently, I understand the academic side of that. So I'm also able to speak to our business student athletes and help them sort of shape their future as well. So it's a real family here in athletics and rec. And I think both Finlay and Vic can attest to that.
Yeah, it's great that there's people like you, staff as well, who have had experiences as George Brown students and know what the sort of pressures of the course load can be like, while someone's also being involved in a team and they can help out. So, as I said, I'm excited that we are also having two GBC athletes with us here today. So, Raymund, can you actually introduce our guests for us?
Yes, absolutely. So we've got Victoria Broomer, a first-year student who is our goalkeeper for our women's indoor and outdoor soccer. She was also the recipient of a first-team OCAA All-Star, which is pretty awesome considering it's very rare that a first-year athlete gets highlighted. They had to have done something phenomenally well, and with Victoria being the youngest on the team and a vocal leader, I think it sort of amplifies her character and what she has to offer in growing the women's soccer program at George Brown College. And then we have Finlay Butler, who joined George Brown for academics, and baseball just sort of happened for him, which is awesome for us. He's one of our starting pitchers. He's also a pioneer in building the men's baseball program as it's recently returned to the college. So having both Victoria and Finlay here to share their journey, I'm excited. So we can turn it over to them because I've spoke way too much.
No, that's great. That was a great introduction. Welcome to you both. How are you doing today?
Oh, we're good. Thanks a lot for having us.
Of course. How are you, Victoria?
I'm good. It's great to be here.
So I just want to know, when did you each start at GBC and what drew you to the college?
I started at George Brown September 2022, and I initially came to George Brown with soccer in mind. George Brown has tended to be like a middle of a pack team, and that's a really comfortable place for a goalkeeper to be because there's equal level of like highly competitive and like a lower level of competition games. And so that was my initial attraction. And then George Brown also happened to have the programs that I was interested in.
Okay, perfect mix. And what about you, Finlay?
I was originally drawn to George Brown for the academic portion. I originally applied in like the fall of 2021, and I was set on going to trades. I'm in the building renovation program right now. And as the summer went on, I've already accepted my offer to George Brown. And my summer team baseball coach actually put me in contact with Josh Appel, the coach of the baseball team right now. And we worked out a spot for me on the team, and I ended up getting a scholarship. And I'm more than happy that I accepted it.
Wow, that's great. I didn't even know that there were scholarships available for athletes at George Brown. So that's awesome. Do you know more about that, Ray?
Yeah, so through the OCAA, there are policies and procedures in place that all of the 24 colleges that compete under the OCAA have to follow suit with. And so there are monies available, and it is dependent on each sort of individual college and how they allocate those funds.
Good to know.
So Victoria and Finn, what was it about GBC Athletics that intrigued you to get involved?
For me, Ray, personally, I went to just a normal practice before I even attended George Brown, and I'd say July of 2022. And I found out that the team itself, they were just great guys and just like a great community. And I was like, this is a really great opportunity. And ever since that, I felt like the baseball team is now like part of my family. We're just really close, and it's a great community.
For me, as I said previously, I was looking more at like a standings point of how the college was doing with their women's soccer. And I was also carefully watching what athletes were going to be returning and which athletes were not returning to the team and what kind of impact they ended up having for the team. And I think I carefully made my decision around that side of it. That way I could like mentally kind of figure out still where we would be in the standings this year. And yeah.
Okay, so you just got a taste of who our guests are and how they're involved in athletics. But we've got lots more to share, including a rare scoring moment, some team dynamics, and how athletics at George Brown can feel like a family. So make sure to tune in to segment 2 for the rest of this conversation. Until then, thanks for listening, and we hope you have a great week.